We're going to try to read just a little bit. Thought I'd read one thing, but I don't think so. I'll have to read something else, and y'all just bear with me till I find it. Over in the book of Genesis in the 22nd chapter. I'm going to start with the first verse of Scripture. Read just a few verses here. There's a lot to be read, but just a few verses start out. Genesis 22:1 says, "And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham." Now, I want to stop right here before I keep reading. God doesn't tempt man with evil. He can't. He can't be tempted with evil, and he can't tempt man with evil. I believe here in this context, he was testing Abraham. More than when we try to tempt somebody, we're trying to entice them into something. I believe he was testing Abraham. "And said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am." That'd be good advice when the Lord calls out to us to say, "Here I am." Y'all bear with us. I really don't know all of what to say or do, but I'm going to do my best. Now the Lord's going to call on you that's been saved sometime or another. Ain't no doubt in my mind he's going to call on you, and he's going to call you by the name he knows you by. And when the Lord calls, say, "Here I am." Now saying "Here I am" is not necessarily a outward voice. It's not always the inward part of us just thinking it. But our actions can say when the Lord talks to us, "Lord, here I am." Because there was a time for every one of you that's been saved that you called on him and he said, "Here I am." He did. He revealed himself to you when he saved your soul and gave you that peace in your heart. You called and you believed, and he said, "Here I am." Ain't you glad that when you call on him that he can let you know, "Here I am"? Yeah. Ain't you glad that there are times when you have absolutely nowhere else to turn, and you know the moment sometimes there's things that have happened. There ain't time to ask for a bunch of other people. You've got to hit the ground right then and there, and you got to say, "Lord, I need you." Y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah. You ain't got time to call nobody else. You ain't got time to ask for advice. You're doing the best you can at the moment, and all you can do is say, "Lord, help me." And you begin to call on him, and then he'll let you know, "I'm right here." I'm glad I've got a God like that, ain't you? I'm glad when he saved my soul that he heard me calling, and I'm glad that he's heard me many times since. He's heard me when I've prayed. He's heard me when I bowed in the floor of my bedroom, praying for members of this church, praying for the children of this church that were in need. I'm glad that he's a God that when we ask him and we call out to him, that he says, "Here I am." But it goes the other direction. Sometimes he's going to catch you when you least expect it, and he's going to call on you. And I ain't talking just about preaching. He's going to call on you. When he calls on you, let your attitude, let the goodness of that is in your heart say, "Lord, here I am." And then the Lord kept on talking, and he said, "Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest. Get thee to the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering. And upon the mountains which I will tell thee of." Now here, there's been times the Lord has called out, and I can feel his presence. And there have been a few times I've said, "Lord, here I am." Not those words, but I acknowledged, I knew it was the Lord. And generally when he calls out of me out of the blue, he wants me to do something. Or it's an answer. And here old Abraham was going along. He'd done left everything he knew. Lord told him to get up out of the land that he was at. And it says in the scriptures that he got up, he took everything he had, and he left. I find the scriptures teach me over in Hebrews in the 11th chapter, verse 8, says, by faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out to the place where he should, after he received inheritance, obeyed and went out not knowing whither he went. The Lord told him to leave, and he didn't question the Lord. He just up and he went. He didn't know what was going to be, what he was going to befall him. He didn't know how it was all going to work out, but he was going to go follow the Lord. Here, having experienced all these things with the Lord, and the Lord promised him a son. Promised him a child, and he gave him that child, just like he said. And here the Lord come along, and he asked him, and said, Abraham, here I am. I want you to take that boy I give you that you love. And I want you to take him to a mountain, and I want you to sacrifice him to me. You imagine the enormity of that request? How much of a request that felt like to Abraham, even mixed with faith. What great faith Abraham had, which is displayed in this lesson. But he asked him to do something that was a pretty enormous task for any one individual. Would y'all agree with that? We can look and we can think, well, Abraham, well, he was above all that. He loved his son. He loved his son. And the Lord here, knowing how much he loved him, knowing that he promised him to him, he said, I want you to take him up there to a mountain I tell you of, and I want you to sacrifice him to me. Now, I question the Lord on a whole lot less things than this right here. Don't y'all? When the Lord comes along and tells you to do something, asks you to do something, don't you question him on the whys? Don't you say, well, Lord, that can't be. There's no way I can get that done. And you give him every excuse, and either you never do it or you put it off as long as you possibly can. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Well, that pales in comparison to the example that serves in the scriptures that Abraham here loved his son, waited on his son, was given his son. The Lord asked him. And you know what? The Lord can't ask too much of us. He can't. It's impossible for God to ask us to do anything that we can't do for him. It's impossible. You might say, well, getting up and singing. I can't sing. It's not too big for you. Well, now the Lord's in it, it ain't. It ain't too big to testify. It ain't too big to talk to a sinner. You know what? With the Lord's help, it ain't too big to preach the Word of God. With the grace of God, along help you. But here we find this man was asked to give up his son, to go and to take him and offer him as a burnt offering for the Lord. And what did he do? I can tell you right now, I'm of his seed by faith, but I didn't have the character of this man. Now, Abraham rose up early in the morning. He didn't put off what the Lord asked him to do. That ought to be us. We ought to be like a duck on a June bug when the Lord asked us to do something. We ought to rise up early and get to doing what the Lord wants us to do. It says, and he saddled his ass, and he took his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood of the burnt offering, and rose up and went to the place which God had told him. He got everything together he was going to need. Sometimes we look for, well, I would do this, Lord, but this. If this was only happening, or this person was only here, or this only had been in the right order, Lord, I could do it. He made sure that everything was in order for him to do what the Lord wanted him to do. I'm going to tell you what, we need to make sure that our lives are in the order it needs to be in, that we can rise up early and go on and do what the Lord wants us to do. It says, and on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. I take it, as he was going, he looked and he said, that's it. That's Mount Moriah. That's the place I'm supposed to be. You know, if we'll get where we need to with the Lord, when he calls out and asks us to do something, he will show us the way just as clear as can be. He'll let us know now's the time. He'll put everything, he'll let it all fall into place. And it says, and Abraham said to the young men, abide ye here with the ass, and and the lad will go yonder and worship and come to you again. He didn't believe that it would just be him that'd come back. He believed they'd both come back. Now that's faith. That's faith that he knew that that the Lord had asked him to do, though it seemed insurmountable, that him and his son would come back. And Abraham took the wood and the burnt offering and laid upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and knife, and they both of them went together. That son was obedient too. He never even thought a thing about it. He packed that wood up that hill. You know, our Lord packed some wood, didn't he? And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. He said, Behold the fire and the wood, where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they both went of them together. And they came to the place which God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him there on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and he took the knife to slay his son. And his angel of the Lord called out unto him of heaven, and said, Abraham. And Abraham said, Here I am. He said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do anything unto him. For I know that thou fearest God, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket of thorns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. We look and we find that as he went up to there, and Isaac had an understanding how old he was. I don't know, but old enough to know that they needed a sacrifice. And Abraham was confident. You might say, well, maybe he just didn't want to worry. I don't know. But whatever reason, Abraham believed that God would prepare exactly what needed to be done. Sometimes we think God can almost do everything. Our lack of faith, we think, well, there's just no way that this is going to work out and everything will be all right. Abraham believed that him and that boy would come right back. He went up there, he laid it all in order. He didn't see the hand of God. He didn't see what God was going to do. He didn't see how this would all turn out right. He put the wood in order, he took his son and he bound him up. And he laid him down on that wood, and he took that knife, still going to do exactly what the Lord told him to do, even though it just seemed like, what in the world? But he never questioned. He went unwavering, and he raised back that knife, and he wasn't willing to do it. He was going to do it. We say you got to be willing. I'm going to tell you what, you better be in motion and let God do something else about it. Here we find that when they did this, that the Lord spoke to him and let him know that he realized that he wouldn't withhold anything from him. I'm going to tell you what the scriptures say. Hebrews 11 and 17, by faith Abraham, when he was tried, he offered up Isaac. And he that received the promises offered up his only begotten son, and whom it is said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called, accounting that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from whence also he received him in figure. So I want you to see that here his faith was so strong, and his desire to please God was so strong, that he was willing to take his son's life, and though he had nothing to base it on, there had been no resurrection of the dead. There had been nothing. There was nothing that he could draw his confidence from and say, well, God done this for so-and-so, that child or that person, they come back to life. He had nothing to draw that on. But he believed, because God said in this young man's seed, you will be blessed. He believed that if he took his life, he knew God would raise him up. Because God couldn't go back on his promises. I'm going to tell you what, you might not understand what God wants you to do. When I say you might understand, you might not know the outcome. You might not know how it's going to work out. But I'm going to tell you what, you better obey God. And you better trust in him. And you better march down that little road, whatever it is that the Lord wants you to do, and you better follow him. And you look and you find that at the end of it, God opened up and he began to bless Abraham. There, even at that time, providing him what was needed. I can assure you, if you'll go and you'll be obedient to the Lord, when he calls on you and you'll trust in him, he'll give you what you need at the other end. No doubt in my mind he will. I find the scriptures over in 1 Samuel 15th chapter that Samuel, prophet, he went to Saul, the king. God had told him to go to the Amaleks and to destroy not only that people, all of them, but Amalek himself, Agag the king. Go down there and to kill them all. They had went up against Israel about 400 years before, and God hadn't forgotten. I'm going to tell you what, my Lord's got a long memory. He got a long memory. And he told him, he said, you go down there and you destroy everything. All their cattle, all their animals, from the king all the way down to the littlest child. Kill them all. Wipe them all out. Don't have any mercy. Leave them all. Take them all for what they've done. But Saul went down there with the people and they spared that king. And they spared part of the good stuff. They took the rams, the best of the flock, and they took the best of what they had, and they brought that back, and the Lord was displeased with this, and he told Samuel about it, and it says that it grieved Samuel to the point that he cried to the Lord all night. Here in this 12th verse of Samuel 15, it says, and Samuel rose up early to meet Saul in the morning, and it was told Samuel, saying, Saul come to Carmel, and behold, he set him up a place, and was gone about, and passed, gone on, and gone down to Gilgal. And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said unto him, Blessed be thou the Lord, I have performed the commandment of the Lord. In his mind, he had done enough to please God. He had convinced himself, yeah, I know you told me to kill them all. And I know I've done this, but you'll be pleased with what I've done. I'm going to tell you, you can't alter the plan, whatever God tells you to do, and think that'll be good enough. If he tells you to join the Lord's church at Friendship, you think, well, I'll do it when I'm good and ready. You ain't going to get away with that. If the Lord tells you to testify and you don't testify because somebody ain't here or because somebody is or because you'd rather do it on another time, I'll just go ahead and tell you, you ain't going to please him. You are not going to alter what he tells you to do and think that's going to be pleasing to him. He ain't going to be satisfied with it. He is going to expect you to follow him to the T. We find here that Samuel said, what meaneth the bleating of the sheep in mine ears and the plowing and the lowing of the oxen which I hear? It says, Samuel knew what he told him to do, kill all of it. He said, how come I hear this? Saul said, they have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and of the oxen and the sacrifice of the Lord thy God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. Then Samuel said unto Saul, stay, and I will tell you what the Lord has said to me this night. And he said unto him, say on. And Samuel said, when thou wast little in thine own sight, wast thou not made the head of the tribes of Israel? And the Lord hath appointed thee king over Israel. And the Lord sent thee on a journey and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners of the Amalekites and fight against them until they be consumed. Wherefore then didst thou not obey the voice of the Lord and didst fly upon the spoil and did evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul said to Samuel, yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord. I have gone the way which he, Lord, sent me, and I have brought Agag, the king of the Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. Here he was, hard-headed as Kevin Harrison. Hard-headed as he could be. The Lord said, kill him, but I've done what he told me to do. He's right here. You know what? Sometimes we can get so blinded. We can get so blinded that coming here and filling a seat is enough. That coming here and filling a seat, well, that'll be enough. I've done what he wants me to do. If he wants you to do more, you ain't done all he wants you to do. You need to go and do all of what the Lord wants you to do. And he said, but the people, now here, this is definitely a Baptist example. The people took the spoil of the sheep and of the cheap things which they should have utterly destroyed, sacrificed to the Lord thy God at Gilgal. He blamed them. They'd have done whatever he told them to do. They would have followed it to the letter because he was the king. So he blamed them. You can blame everybody in this building for not doing what you're supposed to do. But it'll still lie at your door if God's asked you to do something. We find that he says, Samuel said, hath the Lord as great a delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, to hearken than the fat of rams. For a rebellion is a sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king. What he was telling him there is, here you might think that offering all this sacrifice to the Lord, and that smell coming up, when they would do it of the right heart to please God, and that's what God wanted them to do, they said it was a sweet smelling savor. It means it smelled good to the Lord. It was pleasing to him. But here what he's saying is, do you really think that he wants that more than he wants your obedience? Do you really think that he is as concerned about how many rams that you sacrifice to him as your obedience? He said that obedience is what he was looking for. He was looking here, it says, better to obey than sacrifice, to hearken than the fat of rams. What he wanted him to do is what he told him to do. Sounds like a speech my mom and daddy used to give me a lot when I was a kid growing up. Kevin, I just want you to do what I tell you to do. See, not more, not less, just what I tell you to do. And sometimes what I tell you not to do. And we look and we find that he went on and says, stubbornness is as iniquity or unrighteousness in idolatry. I'm going to tell you what, sometimes we're stubborn. We're stubborn. We begin to believe that we're going to fight against God and win. Our own pride, our own self-will, when God tells us to do something, we say, we ain't going to do it. I'm going to tell you what, you may never do it, but you'll suffer over it. You'll suffer if you try to fight against God. Ain't no one of us in here that can fight against God and win. Here we find that he told him to do these things. He failed to be obedient, failed to have the faith that was good enough. He got in his mind what was good enough. You know, sometimes we get to thinking, well, if I do this and this, that'll be good enough. Well, let's just do what the Lord wants us to do, and let that be good enough. And he was stubborn, and he was rebellious, and because of that, the kingdom was took from him, right then and there. There is a punishment to being disobedient. A punishment for not doing what the Lord tells us to do. There's a punishment. Now I can get up here and I can tell y'all every Sunday how much love God's got. And I can tell you how he's going to share you with it. And how everything's just going to be peace and roses. But I got news for you. If you don't do what the Lord tells you to do, you might as well bend over. You're going to get whooped. You might as well get ready. You might think, well, he won't do this or he won't do that. He would never. He can take everything you've got. He can take it all. Take it every bit. He can take your ability to work. He don't have to take a job from you. He can just take your ability to go to it away from you. He can chap the ground in a heartbeat. Won't take him just a few hours to make this a barren land. Wouldn't take him no time, would it? He can take the very freedom that we enjoy. He can vanish that away in just a little bit of time. He can take so much from us if we don't obey him, because that's what he expects of us, to obey him. Just like Abraham did. Say, but it's too big. It's not too big, that's what the Lord asked you to do. It's not too big. You reckon that Noah, when he told him to build that ark, don't you figure that he thought, that's a pretty big job? I mean, the mere size of that thing. What do you mean you want me to build this? I'm sure he thought it needs to be somebody better equipped. Needs to be somebody with maybe more knowledge. Sure that man would think that. But he didn't ask those people. He asked Noah. You might think, I don't know enough. If the Lord asks you to do something, He'll provide you with exactly what you need to be able to do whatever it is He wants you to do. He'll give you the knowledge and the ability to do exactly what He wants you to do, but you got to want to do it. Because if you don't, there's going to be a price to be paid. Saul there is an example of someone that paid a price. You can be a member of this church and miss the kingdom of God. Let me tell you something. You can be a member here and miss it. But I can assure you, if you ain't even a member, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. We're going to have to be willing to answer those calls when they come. Even though it seems enormous. And, when sometimes for some people standing up and testifying is enormous. Even in a crowd this size, they'd be, I can't do that. Somebody gets talking to a lost sinner. I ain't going to know what to say. Whatever the Lord wants you to do, He's working on the other end somewhere. But we got to be obedient. We've got to follow Him. And we can't be stubborn. And we can't be self-willed. And think that we're going to fight against the Lord. And we're going to go on our way and He's going to keep blessing us. That ain't going to happen. My mom and daddy gave me a roof over my head. They put clothes on my back. And they put food on the table. When I was sick, they took care of me. When I got old enough to drive, there was a truck sitting out there for me to drive. They took care of that for me. They paid the insurance on it. I worked around the house. I didn't work public work. I worked around the farm. I didn't get cash. But that's how I worked. That was the agreement. Unwritten rule, but it was how it was. I got my senior year of high school and I thought, this is mine. That's my truck. This is my life. And though they had rules and I was still living at home, I thought, I'm going to do part of what I want to do. And they give me a rule, and if I didn't break it, I'd get it right to the edge. My daddy loves telling about me trying to come in at night. We'd argue about curfew. But he had a rule. We went a little ways, him being merciful to me, him and Mama, me testing them, pushing them, not doing what I was supposed to do, not being a good son. Until one day they showed me everything that I had was theirs. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. That I thought was mine was theirs. The bed I slept in was theirs. The food on my table, clothes on my back, the freedom that I thought I had wasn't my freedom no more. I had no freedom. You want to be embarrassed, you let your mom and daddy drive you to the front door of school as a senior in high school. And that embarrassed you a little bit. That truck sit there idle. Daddy let me know that it was theirs, not mine. All because I was disobedient. All because I wouldn't do what they told me to do and live within the rules of what they asked of me. I remember when I turned 18. It's a whole different ballgame now. I'm 18. I'm a man. Sitting there at the table, all my family, my brothers, grandparents. Daddy says things. Never forget it. I don't know how you forget a lot, and then some things it's just like yesterday. He starts giving thanks for the food. Then he starts praying for me. And he said, Lord, help Kevin. He's almost a man. I raised up. You ain't supposed to raise your head up if somebody's praying. I raised up and looked at him like, what do you mean I'm almost a man? Well, my brothers were just snickering. I thought, man, that's funny. I didn't say nothing then because I knew better, but I asked him later, I said, Daddy, what does that mean? He said, you're still under my roof. Yeah. Everything is still the way it is. Same rules apply to you right now as they've applied to you all the years leading up to this. When I got to a point, they didn't care what time I come in, as long as I come home all right. You know what? I didn't even want to stay out late. Wasn't nothing there. Wasn't no interest in it. I want to tell you something. We don't ever outrun what God owns. We'll never live long enough that we ain't under His roof. And that we don't sit at His table. And that He don't clothe our backs. And that He don't give us the very freedom that we enjoy. There won't ever be a time that we'll ever trod this earth that we'll get to a point that we don't have to listen to His rules anymore. I see kids, they'll come to me, I see them at school, raised up, know their parents, say, well, how's your mom and daddy? Well, we ain't getting along. I've moved out. Why? Well, they want me to live this way. They won't give me rules. And I said, well, breaking my heart. Just breaking my heart. I said, I'll tell them, y'all need to run right back home. You need to stay there as long as they'll let you until you get to a point of maturity. Because right now, you ain't no spot to move out on y'all. Like, well, me and my boyfriends moved in together, or me and my girlfriends moved in together. That's even more reason to let me know they ain't got enough sense, they need to move on. Need to move on. But they begin to think that mom and daddy's rules aren't good enough for them, and they're bigger than those rules, and those rules they don't want them to apply. Well, I'll just do what I want to do. With mom and daddy's rules, come out of this book right here, they'll apply to you when you're 70. Mom and daddy won't make them apply more than God will. And you're going to have to be obedient to God. You're going to have to. You're going to have to humble yourself down. You're going to have to yield yourself to the power that's over you. You can do this the easy way, or you can do it the hard way. But I can assure you right now, your knee will bow. And I ain't talking to lost people. I'm talking to saved people. He will make you yield. He will make you finally give up. He won't make you that you have no choice in it. But He'll get you to the point, yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Because it's a miserable thing to fight against Him. And I've never won a battle. I've never fought against the Lord and won. But there's been just a few times that He has called. And I've said, here I am. Do this. Yes, Lord. He's got one on me right now for a young man I know. I said, Lord, if you'll just bring him in my path, I promise you, I'll talk to him about his soul. You know when the Lord put that on me? I was sitting over here on Ellington, there at that Junior Foods, and I saw him get out of a truck. He's a delivery driver from Hartsville. And I see him hop out. He forgot to let down the gate. Good boy. But he's a boy. I say he's a boy. He may be 22, 23 years old, but he's a boy to me. The Lord says, you need to talk to that boy about his soul. I was 2 cars behind him. He was up. He had that down and gone. I said, if you'll bring him in my path again, Lord, I'll talk to him. Y'all pray that that'll happen soon. Y'all pray that that'll happen soon, because his soul's just as valuable as anybody else's. And he works at Walmart, delivers around these stores around here, so I want y'all to pray that the Lord will bring him soon in my path. And give me the words to say to this young man, because I'm terrified. I'm terrified. You might think, well, you shouldn't be worried about it. I'm as worried as anybody else. But that young man, if he ain't been saved, he needs the Lord. And I want y'all to pray for him. But that's just how quick it come. I wasn't thinking about nothing. I seen the gate up, and I Seen him hop out, and I thought, that's just like him. Just like him. And I mean, just like that. I'm going to tell you what, I'm ready to try to do a little for my Lord. Something I said this morning, and I'll hush here in a minute. My time is short. I ain't sick that I know of. But if I live 20 or 30 more years, my time is short. If I'm going to do anything, I better get to doing it. If I'm going to serve Him, I better get to doing it. Some of y'all are young, 18, 19 years old, teenagers. You might think, I've got time. I'm going to tell you what, that time can snap and be gone in an instant. You called and He said, here I am. Did He not? When He calls, let's say, here I am. Then let's be obedient to that. Let's do what little it is. You might think it's a hard thing. There's no way I can walk up there and join church. You say, here I am, and you let the Lord take care of the rest of it. You might think, well, there's people, they can't come back. Why, yeah, they can. Yeah, they can. They're going to have to yield to the Lord, though. Going to have to yield to the Lord. This is my effort. I know it's been weak. But I'm going to tell you what. I was going to be honest. Preaching is a whole lot easier when the Lord's with you and when other people follow the Lord. I wish that whoever don't join the Lord's church, who is supposed to be joining, I wish they had to get up and talk and struggle along, because when y'all don't follow the Lord, it hinders. It hinders. And I want you to know I'm doing the best I can by the help of the Lord. And I don't want to be a hindrance. I pray to the Lord going to Arkansas back, Lord, if it's me, then take me out. Get me out of the way. I probably said, maybe I need to let Brother Jerry open doors to church. Because when I was coming out here just filling in, he'd come, he'd say a few words, and here they come. Pop, pop, pop. I'm going to tell you what. If that's what it takes, I'll stand right over there again. Because I ain't looking for no honor and glory. The Lord man. He's the one that deserves it. But I don't want to be a hindrance. But I'm going to tell you what, y'all don't need to want to be a hindrance either. And if you're holding out on God and He asks you to do something, I can tell you right now, you're hindering. You're hindering. This is our effort. Might ask for a song.